Administration. Joining me tonight is White House Press Secretary Jay Carney. Jay, thanks for being here.
Brett, glad to be with you.
Congressman Ryan reacted to the president's speech today, as you heard a bit of that in Ed's piece, but he went on to say that the commander-in-chief is acting like campaigner-in-chief. He's not coming up with solutions and ideas. He'd rather have bitter partisan attacks. How do you respond to that?
Well, Brett, I would simply ask Congressman Ryan to respond with the same specificity, the same reliance on math and facts as the president presented in his speech today. Instead, he responded with a lot of boilerplate. Look, leadership is not presenting a budget that uses a magic asterisk to explain away $900 billion in additional non-defense discretionary spending cuts, that says we're going to give massive tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans and somehow pay for them with unspecified closing of loopholes and other means that Congressman Ryan said he'd let the Ways and Means Committee deal with in the future. That's not responsible budget presentation. What the president did today was lay out clearly and in wonky detail why that vision isn't right for America and why it does represent a situation in the Republican Party where what used to be the center of the party has disappeared and realigned itself with what is a very conservative vision that's outside of the American mainstream.
Jay, you say responsible budget presentation. Democrats put forward a budget that failed in the House. A version of the president's budget was voted on in the House, and Democrats said it was a stunt, but it fell 414 to 0.
Right.
Senate Democrats have not passed a budget resolution in 1,070 days. Why?
Come on, Brett. You can cite, and I know that you often do, the statistics that represent, gimmickry and stunts and voting like that.
What's gimmickry about not passing a budget in the Senate?
Look, it is our preference that Congress work and the Senate effectively pass a budget. But
so why doesn't the president call Harry Reid and say, why don't we get a budget on the table and vote on it?
Brett, I know that's what you want to make this segment about. The president put forward and laid out his budget proposal, which has as its core a balanced approach, a balance that to this day Congressman Ryan rejects. There's a lot of citation on cable and elsewhere about the Simpson-Bowles Commission.
Jay, listen,
and how
the question is about the Senate Democratic leadership, Jay.
That Congressman Ryan and
Harry
two
Reid
other
controls the Senate,
Brett,
and he has to have a 51 number to get a Senate budget resolution passed through. Why doesn't he put something close to the president's budget on the table in the Senate and pass it with 51 votes? He has the votes.
Brett, the president has put forward a budget proposal. He would absolutely be delighted if Republicans were willing to approach our deficit challenges in the same balanced way that every bipartisan commission says we must. And that the Simpson-Bowles Commission, which a lot of people like to cite as a high standard which has to be met, included in its membership Congressman Ryan and two other House Republicans. And guess what? They voted against it.
I understand, but you understand the gist of my question.
There is no, you can
it's
talk
not
about
60 votes. It's all Democrats. And all Democrats could vote on a budget. They could vote on it tomorrow. And they could pass it if they put it on the table. You know that. So why doesn't the president call Harry Reid and say, do that?
Brett, I know that that's what you want to make this about.
No, that's what I'm asking.
You know that the only way in modern-day Washington to achieve a significant budget compromise is when both parties are willing to work together. That doesn't mean a unanimous Republican vote in the House or a unanimous Democratic vote in the Senate. It means coming together in a balanced way, on a balanced approach. The President and Democratic leaders have demonstrated their willingness to embrace a balanced approach that the American people overwhelmingly support. What the Ryan Republican budget does is say that we should double down on the same policies that got us into the fiscal mess and economic mess that we're just recovering from.
Okay, we're not making headway on this point, but we'll come back to it.
On the great debate about the Senate budget proposal?
No, on the president's budget being presented in the Senate. I think you know that there could be a vote on it, and if they wanted to. This statement by the president in the Rose Garden has raised a lot of eyebrows and got a lot of reaction.
I'm confident that the Supreme Court will not take what would be an unprecedented, extraordinary step of overturning a law that was passed by a strong majority of a democratically elected Congress.
So did the president misspeak?
No, he didn't. And as the president said today in answer to a question after his speech, he was referring very specifically to the fact that when it comes to an attempt to solve what is widely acknowledged as a national economic challenge, our healthcare system, that there should be due deference paid as a matter of precedent to our democratically elected officials and the bodies that passed the law in question here. He was not, and you know, what was missing, I think, in the piece that led off your broadcast was the fact that the attorney representing the government, in response to the question from the judge, answered yes. Of course we believe that the Supreme Court has, and the courts have as their duty and responsibility, the ability of striking down laws as unconstitutional. The president was talking about the precedent under the Commerce Clause here, represented by the legislatures, the duly elected legislatures' ability to address challenges to our national economy. And that is certainly what healthcare represents. And there is ample precedent, including very powerful opinions by very conservative judges on the appeals court, Judges Silberman and Sutton, that back up that position.
Liberal columnist Ruth Marcus, who is a supporter of the individual mandate and the health care law, wrote this, quote, "The president went too far in that remark. That's what courts have done since Marbury versus Madison. For the president to imply that the only explanation for a constitutional conclusion contrary to his own would be out of control conservative justices does the court a disservice."
Well, I would just say that Ruth misunderstands what the president was saying, and the president made clear today that he was referring not in a blanket way to what the courts how the courts should approach something like this, but to the precedent that exists under the Commerce Clause and the rulings prior to this one in terms of deference to the duly elected legislature and their attempts to deal with a national economic challenge like our healthcare system.
Okay, and quickly, the DOJ will respond to this order by Thursday for the three. I
haven't spoken to anybody at the Department of Justice, but I saw or read what the attorney present said, which is she very clearly answered yes.
Jay, this conversation will certainly continue. We thank you for your time.